that those that are unable to join us are able to view this at a later time. I'm thankful that you have joined me this afternoon. We do have a small group, so this will be hopefully very interactive, ask questions, but just to kind of give me an idea of who all is attending, I would love to have you in the chat box share your name, where you teach or what grade levels, or what your role is. And then tell me, what is one thing you cannot wait to do when this COVID-19 experience is over? Okay, so it is 2 o'clock. We will start. As I just had asked, if you are joining us today, I would love to have you share your name in the chat box and share what your role is at your school. And then, just because we're always looking forward to something, share one thing that you are looking forward to doing again when this COVID experience ends. Mine is just being able to go out and not worry about hugging friends and coworkers. Oh my goodness, I don't think we realize how much we miss that, and just being around other people. And my in-laws moved here a year ago from Ohio. And although we all live in Edmond, they're about 5 miles from us, and we have not been able to see them. And, you know, that's been really hard to know that they're so close by, but just not able to join us. So, okay, first of all, I know that you all are really busy right now. I know I've got some teachers, we have some people in other roles. I think we'll have some people joining in. Today, I wanted to share some of the guidance that is related to digital instruction, and I'm going to share my document, or the document, in the chat box. And just to let you know, it is very lengthy. It is nearly 30 pages long, trying to really be able to provide guidance. But at the same time, I really want to emphasize that this document is just guidance. These are suggestions, things that you may find useful, but nothing in this document is required, okay? As everything, it is all local control within your school districts. We know some school districts are kind of just looking for ideas, and teachers are looking for ideas, so hopefully the information in this document will be helpful. And for those of you that have opened, open the link that was in the chat box. If you are looking on the website, and I'm going to share my screen so you will be able to see exactly where in this document I am referring to. I'll pull this back over here. This is a direct link to the Oklahoma State Department's full COVID instructional support. And the document that I am actually referring to today is right down here at the bottom of the second section, the Return to Learn, and it's launching instruction with digital tools. And as I shared, this document is rather lengthy. So I just kind of want to go through and point out some of what I feel is the most important and most useful information. And then maybe that will help guide your usage as you go through. One thing I do want you to notice is that on page 2, there is a survey, and we would love to have you, after you go through this document, complete that survey. It would help our agency know what information we've shared has been useful and helpful to you, and it will provide us with additional guidance and ideas that the Oklahoma State Department of Education to do to support you and your coworkers as we move forward. Okay, so basically what I'd like you to know is, I'm going to go back up and look at this document. There are really 4 main points, or 4 guiding thoughts as we go through this document. And those are: selecting the appropriate digital tools and implement with care, create clear and effective communication strategies, build and maintain community with digital tools, and empower student choice through digital tools. So when you're looking through these sections, we've got some additional basic guidance here. Each section is going to start off with a little bit of a scenario, kind of trying, we know you as teachers have gone through a lot and experienced a lot and have many things going on through your heads. And we also want you to kind of keep in mind how students and parents are feeling as we go through this journey together. So there are little clips through each of those, and there are 3 questions that allow you to kind of reflect upon the scenario. And then we go to the main body of each of those sections. And for this first section, selecting the appropriate tool, there's a few things that I really want to make sure that you're thinking. First of all, there are a multitude of tools out there that can be useful in the classroom. Please remember when selecting a tool that each tool has to be properly vetted for privacy and legal consideration. Generally, that is done through a school or district's IT department. And you do need to allow them time to go through and look, because we need to make sure that everything related to FERPA and COPA is done in the best interest of students and is not causing any legal restrictions. And unfortunately, sometimes the tool that you think may be the best option for you and your classroom with your students may not have some of the background, the correct privacy settings. So if you do approach your IT department and a tool that you are interested in using has been turned down and they're saying that this does not fit with our school and all of the legalities, be sure to ask them if they have alternative tools. I know 2 tools, Nearpod and Pear Deck, are very, very similar. So some schools are deciding they're only going to stick with one of those tools because they both have some of the nearly the same capabilities. So, go in, remember that when or if software is turned down or a website's turned down, there are reasons behind it, but there are also sometimes ways that you can kind of work around those, find alternatives. And another thing to really think about and consider is, please do not try to implement too many new tools all at once. Just as you are learning new tools and navigating those tools, especially if you're starting out in a virtual environment, it's not as easy to be able to guide your users and sometimes your parents in learning these new tools, and you're not able to support them in the way that they need. So we have kind of given a model of some staggered release schedules that you may consider so that, again, you're taking the time to introduce new tools one at a time to students and parents. And you may not even, I know that there are 6 weeks of tools here, you may not choose all of them. Often it's best for you to select 2 or 3 tools that fit your needs and really make sure that your students are comfortable using those, okay? I'm going through and we're talking again about the privacy considerations for each of the tools. And if your school does not have a rubric to vet tools, here are some guiding questions that they may find useful. There are many schools across the state that have their full list of tools that have been approved so that they're able to be viewed by parents, by teachers. They go through and they list the ages that those tools are used for and approved for, the privacy policy information. And I believe that that's Wes that I see nodding his head. And if any of you are already familiar, I know that Wes is a fabulous person to turn to for resources. So I appreciate you coming here, Wesley. And for those of you that have just joined us, what I'm going to do is, again, drop the link to the digital tool guidance document into the chat box. And that is, there we go. The actual document is toward the bottom of the second section on that website. And it is called Launching Instruction with Digital Tools. So the first section is basically related to selecting the appropriate digital tool and implementing it with care. And like we said, the second section is talking about creating clear and effective communication strategies. That may not seem that it's kind of underneath the EdTech umbrella. I feel it is because many of the tools that you're going to be using to communicate do fall under that umbrella. And again, here's a great scenario of a mother that is trying to keep on top of her two children's variety of classes, accessing information from email, Remind, from a learning management system through so many different tools that it becomes confusing. And each of us may have our own strong way that we believe is the best way to communicate with students and families. But we do have to understand that, especially in middle school and high school, some of those students have 7 or 8 different teachers. And, if you're a parent of 3 children, you might have, 16, 17, 18 different teachers you're trying to keep up with and modes of communication. It is really important that any communication is consistent and that all expectations are clearly stated and clearly understood by families and students and caregivers. So that means, we've provided some guidance here in terms of what are some digital tools and support and some questions. Here are some modes of digital communication. How will students learn to use some of these tools? Especially if you're a middle school teacher, maybe your K-5 students have not had some of the exposure and you're trying to go about this through remote instruction. And how do you plan to teach students where to look and when to look for different types of communications? How will students be submitting coursework? How will students receive feedback? How frequently will teachers be expected to reach out to parents? And I know, as not only the parent of 3 former students, but as a teacher, there is some of that comparison too by parents, where if you've got one teacher of one of your children that is emailing daily, consistently, providing clear and explicit directions, and then you have another teacher that, well, they communicate on Monday at 2, and then they might communicate Saturday morning, and there's no consistency, and that doesn't help our students or our teachers or our parents stay on top of everything. What are some tools or websites that students are supposed to be expected to know how to use? And going through kind of thinking of these, both maybe your district has already provided you guidance on this, but this might be something that you as a teacher can also go through and firmly answer each of these questions and kind of create a guidance, and especially within your individual school. Make sure that you're using some of the same tools and communicating consistently. We've even talked about it's great if you're able to survey parents and find out what is the best tool or method of communication for them. And sometimes that does require 2 different methods of communication. Maybe some families are really loving the Remind app, but some of them like to have an email or a newsletter that they're able to refer back to. And again, going back to the clear expectations, we know that in a classroom, you might verbally remind students multiple times. You're not able to do that if you are involved in virtual instruction. So you need to kind of think that whenever you're communicating, read through it, maybe through a different lens. If I'm a student, is this clear to me? What might I have a question if I were a student? Or a parent reading this, what kind of information, what additional information might they need? We also know that we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students and our families. And many times tools such as Google Translate or DeepL or Talking Points are great. You know, I'm sure that their translations are not 100% perfect because, you know, if you talk to any world language teacher, they're not going to say that Google Translate's the best. But, you know, it's better than just sending information home in English and having that family have no way to translate it. For those students, I have 2 children. Both of my daughters are extremely dyslexic, and tools such as Microsoft's Immersive Reader is very well integrated with multiple tools. And, you know, sometimes we have to look at some of those adaptations again to make sure that all of our students are understanding and the directions and are able to proceed. And even Google and Microsoft tools have some integrated voice to text options. Any questions so far on, or any thoughts, anything you want to throw out on selecting appropriate digital tools and effective communication strategies? And you're welcome to unmute. This is a small group. Do any of you already have established communication plans by your grade level or from your school or district?
Some of our lower grade teachers are using Seesaw.
Okay.
And I'm not familiar with that yet, so I was going to look into that, but Seesaw is one that they've suggested.
And, you know, that has a rich communication system. I did a Tech Tool Tuesday on that, and I'm going to share at the end. So if that's something that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, I already have a video tutorial that can kind of help you with that.
I actually think I signed up for that, but there were too many people, so I didn't get to it.
Well, you know what? The Zoom rooms only hold a certain number of people, and the response to those trainings and tutorials, I had nearly 1,100 people sign up just for that Seesaw training, and we had no clue.
We've been using Seesaw the last 4 years, and we're using Google Classroom for our middle school and high school, but for 4th grade. But for 3rd grade and below, it's all Seesaw. And Karen, if that's something you'd like, you know, to have a workshop on or something like that, my wife or some of the other elementary teachers, she's doing 3rd grade. We could do something like that because Seesaw has a free tier, so teachers can just sign up to do that. We've been paying because the portfolio moves, you know, forward, but our parents, I think, have really appreciated being able to get both text messages or email. And then the communication tools, they have done so much in, you know, since the spring with the outbreak of COVID. And so it's been a fast learning curve, but we've had all kinds, especially our preschool and kindergarten teachers that really were resistant, I would even say, for technology. We all had to, you know, go remote. So it's been very positive, and we're just continuing to work on professional development and talk about, you know, what is appropriate and the expectations. And so the Seesaw will let the teacher individually send, you know, direct messages to parents. But I think Karen's absolutely right. Having, you know, some policies and guidelines to try to have some level of expectation for parents, so it's just not radically different between classrooms, is important. But I think it really has been well received by our parents, and it's something that we're anticipating probably needing to continue doing, you know, with remote learning. So.
And I think it's such a good tool because especially not only is the communication great, but you're able to have a communication trail. And I love that, you know, a parent says, well, you never let me know, you know, the more documentation you have is always great too. And by having some standard place for parents to refer, such as the Seesaw platform or within Google Classroom, where everything is housed and they're not looking for an email from this and a text from this. Standardization is fabulous.
Yeah, and we're trying to work with our communication team with frequently asked questions, because one of the things, Seesaw is not a learning management system. It's not a whole website creation tool. It can't do everything. But I think ideally, if the district and the school has, you know, a good frequently asked questions in place to try to refer, and then also trying to find ways to not overwhelm teachers with so many messages. I mean, that's something else to balance, but Seesaw is definitely worth checking out. And I think it, for especially younger grades, is a much preferable tool to Google Classroom for a lot of reasons. So.
Completely agree. Some other methods, we're talking about email and, some of the considerations. Some schools have students having email very young within restrictions that maybe they're only able to email within a school, or it's district-wide, or some basic descriptions, best practices, and probably legal considerations, just again, to make sure that everything is covered. Talking about phone calls, we know a lot of teachers are kind of reticent to make phone calls, especially when they're from home, because that shares their personal phone number. I have been using Google Voice quite a lot since my office phone is, well, I'm at home and I don't have access to my office phone. Look around, there are definitely ways, and that it's very comforting when you can actually hear a person's voice, and it kind of directs your communication, and you're able to, people obviously take things out of context when they're just typed, and so voice is good. Text messaging, using tools such as Remind or Talking Points are a great way to communicate. Also in video conferencing. Consider even video conferencing with parents. If parents are unable to come in, or you're not face-to-face, maybe you could try and set up an appointment with each parent just for 10-15 minutes to say hi. That they're always, there's much more comfort in having a family know who is teaching their child, and provides more of that buy-in with the families. Phone conferencing, hyperdocs. Social media, we know a lot of schools are actually using social media to communicate, but please remember that probably that's only within family communication, and to make sure that if you're making groups within social media like Facebook, that only certain people are allowed in, so that you're able to share student work possibly without privacy issues, and then sharing within learning management systems. I know a lot of schools have decided to use Canvas this year. I have not actually, I've experienced Canvas as a user, but not recently. And I do have numerous tutorials on Canvas on my database of tutorials. Unfortunately, when I tried to use and access the actual Canvas tutorials from their website, it was requiring a login. And even those teachers that use Canvas at the school, they've tried to log in. So that's something that if you're a Canvas user and need access to some videos, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with that. Okay, another thing is, especially for those schools that are starting day one online, for that first week of school, you are doing all of that classroom community building, getting to know one another, talking about the rules, and it seems like a huge challenge because we've never really had to do that virtually. So again, we have a snippet or a little scenario and some reflection questions, but here are some guidance that will help your students hopefully be able to kind of bond as a class. And I actually have some activities I'll share at the very end that are more take and go that I think you might like. Some ideas for building a classroom community. Again, making positive phone calls, building relationships with your students, having them share one another. Zoom sessions are great. Some things to consider though. I know that there's been a lot of discussion lately on Zoom sessions with your students. At first, all teachers were requiring students to have their cameras on with Zoom sessions. And we know that that caused a lot of reticence with students because maybe their background, their home environment is nothing that they wanted to share. Or you have to admit that when you're looking at a whole tile of learners or people within a Zoom session, sometimes you're more interested in watching what other people are doing. So I've seen a lot of information out lately about, student choice. If a student wants to have the video on, I know again that causes teachers, the concern is, how do I know that if a student is really there? Are they just letting the Zoom session run and they're nowhere near? But partnering with families and hoping that, your families can support the Zoom sessions. And you do need to think about, I know some schools have allowed Zoom sessions to be recorded. and some schools are saying that they do not want Zoom sessions to be recorded. If your students do not have their own individual devices and that there is sharing of devices among student family members, you need to try and figure out ways that you can still personally contact each individual student. Because if there's one device and two students and they both have a class at 2 o'clock that they're trying to attend, there's no way that that can physically happen. You know, and even recording a video once a week and using something like Screencastify to record a 2 or 3 minute video. I'm really excited. This is what we're going to do this week. You know, make sure students are seeing your voice, seeing your face and hearing your voice, and establishing relationships through that. The last section of the document I think is probably the richest. We know that distance learning or virtual learning, or whatever you'd like to call it with your school, does provide us with some unique opportunities, especially related to student choice. We know that we can give students choice boards in classrooms and say, you know, this group's going to work on this and you're over here. But working virtually provides us with an even greater opportunity to provide students with voice and choice. And I think that that's wonderful. And to make sure that it's able to fit every learner, we really referred to the universal design for learning and those guidelines. And, you know, there are 3 sections. We've got engagement, and each of these sections have a guideline and then checkpoints. And trying to find ways to share with teachers ideas that will involve different tools and how different tools can be used. Because sometimes you learn about a tool and you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a great thing, but you're not really finding a way to actually incorporate that tool. So things such as choice boards and allowing students to make choices between virtual choice boards, and how do you even create those, or Screencast-O-Matic or Screencastify to create short videos. We also have the area of representation, and talking about the fact that you may not know this yourself, but what about the students that need a slower voice explaining instructions? Did you know that you're able to slow down YouTube videos or speed them up to make sure that they're playing at a speed that best works for your learners? That's something easy that maybe you could share with your students. I didn't put direct instructions on that, but I can send those your way easily. And just, you know, talking about using the tool Grammarly. I know a lot of English language arts teachers have debate over using a tool that helps students write. But what I like about Grammarly and developing writing skills is that a student can put their paper into Grammarly and have it review it. And it doesn't tell you every single thing, how to fix every single thing. You know, I love it when it says you have a passive voice. And then that takes the students or the user, an adult like me, to go back and think, passive voice, oh, how can I fix that? So it's reinforcing concepts, but helping students develop writing skills as well. Kahoot and Storyboard that, Google Translate, Desmos and Flipgrid. And then we also have action and expression. And again, just trying to think of, these are ways to be able to hopefully reach every learner, allowing student choice. If they're reading a book in their English language arts class, a novel, and at the end of the novel, they need to come up with ways to show what they've learned. You know, some of them might want to create a video trailer. Some of them might want to write a traditional book report. Some of them might find going into Google Earth and creating a Google Earth tour of all the different places, scenarios within the story, and write little, you know, captions for each of those scenarios. And that can be something that you yourself do not necessarily have to be an expert in. You know, sometimes students are pretty good at going and finding their own tutorials and guiding them. Or somebody says, I really want to try that. Maybe you can find some support, or you can email me and I would be glad to Google and share ideas with you. And tools such as Google Keep. I was actually watching a webinar earlier today, and they were talking about Google Keep is a wonderful thing. I kind of think of it like a sticky note of checklists for myself. You know, I use it personally for my grocery list and to keep track of what I need to take on a vacation. But you can encourage and teach students to create their own personal checklists. Here's what I need to accomplish on Monday. Or you can create a checklist and share it with them. Here's what you need to do throughout the week. And, you know, student pace. You can determine which one happens first, second, and third. So although at times it seems like digital or virtual learning can be, you know, kind of a challenge, it also allows us to open up the tools that we have and take students to places that maybe they really hadn't gone before. And as teachers, it's okay if you don't know everything. We're learning together, and sometimes it's really wonderful when a student goes and says, did you know how to do this? And I'm like, wow, you taught me something new today. I love that. So that kind of is an overview of what is a very large document. And hopefully that will give you some ideas of where you may want to go in and take a deeper dive and look. All throughout the summer, I've also just been trying to find resources and guides and ideas to share with teachers. Trying to be proactive, thinking about what tools you may select and what questions you may have. So also in this document, there are links to tutorials and guides for digital tools. This was a document that actually went out in April. And then based upon the reaction to that, I've created 2 tutorial databases that are housed on the SDE EdTech webpage. You can access those directly through links here. One tutorial is just on Google tools, and another one is, I couldn't think of a better word, other educational digital tools. But the great thing about this is they're filterable. They're filterable by tool, they're filterable by user, they're filterable by user level of experience. Some of them are video, some of them are text and printable documents, so that you as a learner or you as a teacher are even able to say, here's a Flipgrid for students, how to get started with Flipgrid. That's something that you could copy that link and share within a learning management system within Google Classroom or in an email with parents. And you know, you can build up your own repository too of tutorials, because we know that we all need a place to refer to. It's kind of one of those, if you don't use it, you lose it. So, and it would save you a ton of time, because you know, you can build your own within Google Classroom. Here's a Google Doc that has all of these links, and people can go back, and that will just save you some question and answer time in the future. If there are educational tools that are not included in this tutorial that you're interested in, again, I will search. That's kind of like one of my favorite things to do, go out there and find new tools and new tutorials. So if you've got a tool that you would like to see added to that list, I would love to look for you. Ongoing support, all of my Tech Tool Tuesday recordings are also housed on the OSDE website. So there's Seesaw, Screencastify, Google Jamboard, Pear Deck, Edpuzzle, and I know I'm missing a couple, but and so those are the video recordings. But if you're a person that would like to have a more text version, I will also remember later today to add my slide decks, because in the slide decks, I've got step-by-step instructions and circle and highlight different areas to make it easier for you to go back and look when you're doing something independently. And moving forward, I will be meeting with anyone who wants to meet on the 4th Monday of every month. You're able to register using this link here, and it's a register one time, and you can come anytime. It's from 3:30 to 4:30. Some people have asked for me to do a deeper dive into the tools that were discussed on Tech Tool Tuesday, kind of like doing a 2.0. Now that we've used Flipgrid, how can we use it in an enhanced way, or what other new things are coming out? I was just involved in a Google session, and I left it for this, but they were introducing all of the new things that are part of Google products and that are coming out slowly. I also have a monthly EdTech newsletter, and you are able to subscribe to that here each month. One of the things that I'm very concerned about is the area of digital citizenship, because as we have more students using digital tools and being on the internet, I don't think that enough attention has been given to that. I did an Engage OK session on digital tools and will follow up. But each month in this newsletter, there will be a section devoted to easy digital citizenship tools or lessons that can be implemented in classrooms. So we also have an EdTech Facebook community, which has been great because people pose questions and respond to each other there. I also put a couple other Facebook groups that I follow, and you can follow us on Twitter as well. I know that there are other, like Mr. Fryer here has a wonderful website and is great about sharing information on Twitter especially. Before I share my last bit of ideas on some maybe back to school community building activities, is there anything that I haven't yet covered or something I've covered that you might have questions over?
Karen, where was the link to the Google Tools and other tools database? Which document are we on? Is this the launching with digital tools?
Yes, I'm going to put those right here into the chat box.
Awesome.
This first one I'll put is, and then well, there you go. You can actually see what it looks like. Come on. You know what? I am just going to share this website because this is where everything is housed. And, you know, that might be a good place to bookmark.
Awesome. Thanks.
Sure. Anyone else? Are the majority of you starting back virtually, or are some of you starting back face to face?
Face to face Friday.
Good for you. My former school in Georgia started face to face today, and I was impressed with all of the work that they've gone through to make sure that it's safe for students. Some other things. I am a person that loves to follow definite people online, and one of my favorite EdTech bloggers is Casey Bell. She has a blog, a podcast, and everything called Shake Up Learning. And this morning, I was looking, and she had several back to school online activities. And I thought that rather than just pulling them out, you might want to look through. Here's a great way for meeting the teacher and students using Flipgrid. You know, if you are starting back to school virtually, it would be great for you to create a Flipgrid, if you're a Flipgrid user, to introduce yourself to the families, and maybe not just have the student introduce themselves to you, but you know, have the whole family introduce. The more you know about the whole family, the more you really understand that individual child. It provides you a lot of information. So meet the teacher and student Flipgrid. Virtual classroom tour and orientations. You know that even at some point, we hope that everyone will be back in the classroom face to face, but it would be great, especially for some of those students that are brand new to your school, to have a little bit of an idea of where everything is found. So taking your phone and just walking down the hallway and saying, here's where our classroom is, and, you know, open the door and kind of give them a virtual tour, 3 to 5 minutes, a quick thing that could be added and sent out to your emails would provide, again, students, especially new students, some comfort. They can kind of see where everything is and get excited about the actual return to the classroom. This one I just saw today, and I'm really kind of frustrated that I hadn't seen it before. I don't know if any of you have seen this. You can create your own app for your classroom using SlidesMania. And maybe that is a great alternative if you're not using a learning management system, to create an app that has all of your class announcements and calendars and ongoing projects, and you can share pictures, and only certain people. It's not a real app. It's kind of like a shortcut to take you to a website, but it'll look like an app on your phone. And that might be something. It says it's very simple to do. I'm sure many of you have already created a Bitmoji virtual classroom. I have not shared anything specifically on creating those because I was trying to focus more on the academic, but I'll tell you that this is a great way to show your students your personality and who you are. I know teachers are having scavenger hunts, and just looking here, we can kind of see maybe a teacher's favorite colors. It gives them some guidance, and students love to see what outfits or what Bitmoji pose they're going to see. And there are some links on how to create those. And for those of you, there's also virtual locker decorations. Your students may or may not enjoy that. This was made within Google Slides. If you are working with Bitmoji, please remember that that is one that I know that there's an age restriction for students. So if you were going to encourage them, they could probably create their own locker image, but it would not probably have a Bitmoji due to the age. Emoji writing, about me. Be cautious when you're asking students what they did this summer, because some of them may not have anything exciting to share. Most of them won't. I don't think any of us have anything exciting to share. If you're trying to get to know people, instead of asking them, what did you do this summer? You can ask them more of the imaginative. What would you have liked to have done? Or if you could have done anything this summer, what would be your ideal summer? So, just kind of be cautious, but they can do comic strips as ways to share that information. And then whether you're using Zoom, you can definitely change your backgrounds. And I'm thinking Google Meet was working on that. I can't remember if they have allowed that or if that's one of their new features that come out. But students would probably really enjoy being able to do things like that. So hopefully you at least have one takeaway from today. I am here all the time. I answer emails all the time. Making sure that you as a teacher are able to establish when your workday ends so that you are able to be you and do self-care for yourself and self-care for your families. I know that in our office, we've kind of talked about the fact that since we're still working from home, there's really not a clear end of the workday. I know that we've all ended up working more hours because it's so easy to say, oh, well, my computer and monitor are there. I'm just going to sit down and work or reply to that email. So although I say I'll answer just about any time, I'm here for you, please make sure that you take time for yourself. But I am here as a strong resource. I want to be there for you. And if there's anything I can do, just please feel free to email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat box. Like I referenced at the beginning of this session, there at the very top of the document for the technology guidance, there is a survey. And when you are looking at that survey, it's kind of guiding me. It's guiding our department, So I've shared information with you. We know that there are many things. We couldn't even begin to share everything that will answer all of your questions, but please use that survey as a guide for future instruction. And I encourage you to attend the monthly EdTech meetings. Your guidance on the survey or your topics, email me and say, I need help with this. I'm sure there's other people, and we can do topic-specific PD even within those monthly meetings. So starting virtually, and let's see, Canvas tool. There was a question. Are there a list of tools that work well with Canvas? You know, I think I Googled that, and I'm trying to see if any of you know right off the top of your head, but Canvas integrations, Mr. Fry, or you're not a Canvas school, are you?
We are not. So our friends in Edmond would be Julie Gathright, what would be a
Yep.
good resource to reach out to on that. And I don't know if that's probably something too. Do we have a place where like the support pages of different districts are linked up? That might be something good to know if
We
they've got that
do.
publicly.
We do not, but I mean, tools, questions like this, I know that here, what integrations are supported, and that is not the question that we wanted. Twitter, that doesn't really help. Skype, Digo, multimedia, Google, but that's, you know, if you think to email me, I will be glad to see what I can find. I know it won't take me very long, but I would be glad to share that response with you. I know there was somebody and I can't find the name. Sandra. So if you email me, I will reply, and Winona, if you will email me too, I will reply with the information that I found. Fine. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I will remain on and answer individual questions. I know you guys have a multitude of things to do. You're in my thoughts and prayers. I hope you have a strong start to the school year, and just remember I'm here. Is there a better tool than Google Slides to add lessons to Seesaw that interact better?
Seesaw's, I'll field that one. Seesaw has added some really great tools this summer so that teachers don't have to be like in the spring to make a choice board. The recommended way was to do a Google slideshow and publish the link. And there's a lot more that you can do. My wife has just been going through, they had the Seesaw Connect conference. So I don't know. Well, teachers can do individual audio and video on separate slides in Seesaw. And so there's more that teachers can create in Seesaw without doing something outside. So if you haven't checked it out, there's a program Seesaw has free called their Pioneer program, and it really is like a baseline of learning. And so we're asking all of our new teachers who haven't done Seesaw before to do that. And it's called, they still have an ambassador program, which is like more advanced, but Pioneer is like a basic level. And so you might check that out and also share that with teachers because it's free and it takes you step by step through a lot of the tools, and a number of those were upgraded over the summer. So
it has been exciting to see all of the changes within these different ed tech tools for everything. Just they've seen the need. It has made me sad. I know that a lot of tools shared the free access initially, and you kind of knew where it was headed. Teachers began to love a tool and really become familiar with it, and then there's a cost associated with it in the fall. So you know, moving forward, whenever you do see tools that offer temporary free options, always keep that in mind, because unless you're willing to pay for it out of your own pocket, you know, schools are probably pretty tight. But we really appreciate you all coming.
I threw one more in there.
Yeah.
WooClap, I just learned about it this summer. It's entirely free for K-12, and I've been using it in live webinars with teachers, and I'm going to use that with my students, both when, you know, if we have to go full remote, and then when we're just face-to-face, to have polls, to make word clouds, and it's they only have to pay for if you're in a university level. So K-12 with that is totally free, and that's obviously a great thing.
That is awesome. I too had just learned about that this summer and have not yet had a chance to play. So you're promoting me to spend time learning that tool. So, okay. Well, again, I appreciate y'all coming. Have a great afternoon, and good luck. Thank you.